since I became a top fan.
So, how's it, guys? Talk GP. This is episode 5, season 2, I think. You can see I changed things around a bit. I've got Paul sitting here at my studio. If you remember what it looked like beforehand. We've got production screaming at me, forgetting about the delay. I've swapped everything around, looks a bit different. So, say hi to Paul.
How's it, guys?
We'll do that. So, Paul's here. We're speaking about comms. Last time, it was about a month ago, we spoke about OB specifically. If you can hear a bit of rain, it's just started storming outside. We spoke about designations in the OB van, different guys on the teams with in the audio department.
Yes.
You know, because obviously from a production perspective, you know, we've got our stage checks and all that, and you guys got your different guys. And then we got onto the subject of comms, which we sort of pushed aside because we want to make it specific. Comms is something that essentially is like a sound. Comms is like the sound guy in an OB setup. If everything works, no one knows it exists. If there's something wrong with the comms, it affects everybody, especially if it's the director's comms.
Yeah.
You know, if he hears someone he doesn't want to hear, I think that's probably the most common scream I hear down is like, whose mic's open? You know, when someone's got a mic keyed open to a director, all that. So let's start by painting a picture. When we say comms, what specifically are we referring to? I mean, comms is short for communications.
Yeah.
But what communications?
Okay, so you get a few basic different types of systems. So to break it down, is you get comm systems, which are frame based, and those can go up to huge numbers of people, comms panels, 4 wires.
What's frame based?
So it's basically a rack. It's got cards in it, and you populate that as
it's like a big DSP unit.
Big DSP unit.
Okay.
Riedl's just released a 1024 port.
So are those paths?
Those are paths, but a port can have a comms panel on it, and that can have 48 buttons on it.
But access to all 1024 sources.
All 1024 sources.
So essentially it's 1024 by 1024.
Yes, essentially.
And return.
Yes, and return. Send and return. And so your programming gets really intense. Then you get the talkback systems that you guys
there for a bit. The programming, is that the audio guy's issue?
Depends. South Africa, sometimes. Internationally, yes. But so when I guarantee a job, I will look after the audio, and I'll look after comms generally up to 128 ports.
Okay.
Anything bigger than that, I have comms guys that come and look after the comms, because I can't do 128 ports plus look after all the audio.
So I mean, it's the audio department thing.
Yes.
So there's a dedicated guy, but most of it is done pre-show.
Most of it's pre-show,
and even potentially pre-location.
If you've got a full spec sheet, you can do a pre-location
framework, like a just Lego blocks, and then when you get there, you find it out, or you
yes.
check it out. And how often do you find that you do a lot of work, and then the technical director would sit down and go, okay, but I want this, and it's like completely opposite to what you've planned, and he's already sitting in the van?
Not often, because if you've had your pre-production meetings,
you should be close.
You should be close. But if you work with the States, the directors, TDs from the US, they work very different to TDs from the UK and Australia and South Africa.
Okay.
So if you know where your TDs are coming from, you already can switch mindsets. Okay.
So what would be a difference? Would it be what they want to see on their comms panels? Because obviously the TD is also sitting with all the cameras in front of him. So he wants a specific layout and where preview program, where he wants his close-ups, where he wants the numbers and all that kind of stuff. But on the comms, is it who he has in terms of quick access to,
Yes.
or who he listens to?
It's both. So they work a lot on party lines. So you push one button and everybody hears
On that party.
on that party line.
Yeah. So a party line would be, for example, your stage manager with his crew.
Yes.
So you've got a guy running around listening to director and getting props, all
Yes.
that, and he's talking on a separate ring
Yes.
to all of his guys.
Yes.
But they all can listen to the director, but then he could have potentially also then listen to them.
No, the party line would be everybody hears it.
Okay.
So even if he speaks to his guys, the director will still hear it. But that's where discipline comes in. That's a hugely disciplined comm system. Because you don't want a junior tech who's been given a headset to listen,
And
suddenly cracking a joke in the middle of a
or
show.
have an opinion of something.
Having an opinion. You're not paid for an opinion. You're paid to carry a box.
Or it's not your job to tell me I need more time.
Yes.
You should have rehearsed and all that. Because obviously, the time is a massive aspect on a live show.
But all the others, they like to have direct communication with each individual. But we do group things together. So cameras, you'll have them, your studio cameras, you put all of them together. If you're doing a sports event, you'll have your field of play cameras together.
Okay.
Then you'll have your interview cameras that are running around doing the weirdest things on their own
Mission.
but also on their own talkback. So the producers can say to the guy, into the crowd, we need interviews. And it's only that cameraman that hears.
And
It's not disrupting any of the other cameramen. It's not disrupting the TD or anything.
The camera guys also, what I've noticed, they've got their brief and they know what they're called.
Yes.
It's not always by name, it's by number. Some guys call names. I know some
Yes.
directors want the names on the cameras, others want the numbers. And you sort of zone out everything but that.
Yes.
You're following the game because you've got to stay in context.
Yes.
So you generically following the game or whatever's happening on stage, but you follow your brief. And then when you get called on, that's when you respond on. That's when you're ready.
Yeah.
And pretty much you've got to be ready before you get called on.
Or like the reverse on a soccer match, for example. That cameraman is there for reactions. So he follows the coaches, kicking chairs, swearing at the fourth officials and that sort of thing. That's his whole thing. But then something else will happen. And the TD will actually say, camera 12, help on this.
And it'll be something in a...
And he'll come out of what he's briefed on, help with that, and then shoot back to what he was doing.
His default.
His default.
Yeah.
But that's where having clear communication comes in.
Yeah.
And the bigger your sets get, the more involved it gets, the more crucial comms become.
Yes.
Because if you do a reality show, like I work on something called I'm a Celebrity. Our set is 5 square kilometers.
Yeah, that's everywhere.
So everybody's got radio talkback, two-way radios.
And those are integrated into your
Those are
comms.
all integrated into the comms. So if you're sitting at a desk, you've got a comms panel.
So that integration happens, say for example as Motorola radios.
Yes.
You get a base station for that,
Yes.
which then has a 4-wire or even a digital connection which you feed into into your comms.
And there can also be a PTT connection driven off a GPR from the comms. So
PTT stands for push to talk.
push to talk
GPI is general purpose
interface.
interface.
So what it does is because sometimes this is where comms becomes more complicated. You got simplex channels. So a simplex channel, one person talking at a time. End of discussion.
Like a two-way radio. You push, you talk, and you're
Yes.
not going to hear anything until you let go.
Yes.
Another guy.
Because
keys.
it's one frequency.
Yeah.
Then you can program a two-way radio with duplexes. So they got a receive frequency and a transmit frequency. So on a duplex, you can have the director or program audio going to their two-way radio all the time. But if
And they can still respond
they can still
without
respond
cutting off.
without cutting.
Which is what our common comms system. You know,
Yes.
if you talk about a radial comm system or any one of these comm systems, you put it on and it's a two-way communication.
Yes.
You switch off your mic by default. That's a rule.
Yes.
You know, you don't. The only mic that never switches off is the director.
Yes.
I mean, that for me, I normally call that the hot mic. And when I park next to your van, I'd ask you for the hot feed, and the hot feed would be whoever's in charge, technical director's mic. I take an analog of that out of your comm system,
Yes.
and I patch that to a little speaker separate to my comms panel, because the comms panel's got this little dinky, you know, ET mic on it, ET speaker on it. It's loud, but it's not distinctive.
Yes.
If there's other people talking, because I also want to listen to production assistant, I will listen to floor manager, different people, and I listen to them on the comms panel, and I take the hot mic to a separate speaker out of my field of listen, so it's like someone standing behind me, and I can make it quite loud, and that's the director's mic.
Yes, and the nice thing about that is having it out of your listening zone field, it doesn't color your mix.
Exactly. I mean, that's what bugs me. If I sit in OB1 or 2 from SABC, the comms panel smack bang in the middle, which is my center of my listening field, and I'm trying to do stuff and I can't turn it down. So I'd often then, even in that van, what I've done is I've taken one of your little Fostexes on the side there,
Yes.
and I've wired the director's comms to that,
Yes.
just so I can turn this comms panel down and have that speaker, because it's quite I mean, if you think about it, we're in there to do sound,
Yes.
you know, so we have to focus on what the mix sounds like. And that's why I've seen a lot of guys that do sports and that kind of stuff, they start mixing on visuals, because you go and you tune up your mics, you line up everything, and you see what's where, and you're actually listening to the comms panel more than you're listening to your mix.
Yes.
And you've got fader positions, and you're following what's happening, and you've got up and down on cameras. You've got some automation happening with GPIs from the vision desk, but you've predetermined your loudness levels on all your mics and your gain structures and everything. And every now and again, when something happens out of the norm, you'd listen. You'd undim your main speakers. But the level in there is pretty much the loudest thing in that control booth is the director, which is your comms panel. Then I come in there, for example, and I've got to do a music show, which is a little bit different.
Yes.
And then the most common comment I get from the audio team in an OB van is, why is it so loud? And he's talking about my reference mix, which I'm pushing up to 82, 86 dB, when generally it's sitting at 76 dB. You know, it's like 10 dB softer. And then, you know, it's quite hence where I've created my own OB, where I go sit, I do the music somewhere else, and I bring a stereo pair in, and you take that, and you guys can do what you want to do. So on that comms things, we've spoken about the different rings. How's the technology changed in the last 10 years?
Okay, so the last 10 years, there's been, like I was mentioning, they've now gone up to, they managed to get 1,024 ports in a 3U frame.
Sure.
It's mad.
So 10 years ago, you had your 4-wire analog system.
Yeah.
And you had a couple of rings, and you can link them together.
And you had one comms panel per port.
Yeah.
Now you can go, because it runs AES67, you can run 64 channels, or 64 comms panels
on a port.
So you come in out of a port into a switch, and you're just distributing comms panels.
And every panel can be differently programmed.
Every single panel, every button can be differently programmed.
Because I know that my normal comment is, when I sit in a production brief, is like, if I can have a comms panel, that's a non-negotiable. Yeah. And then sometimes I ask for a video switch as well, just to make it easier.
Yeah.
But then you like, when you ask, I'm not in the van, and I ask for a comms panel, you normally see the tech guys go, okay, because they're trying to count how many they've got.
Yes.
And which ones work.
Yeah. So that's one aspect of it. The other thing is, you get digital belt packs now, and the old belt packs, they ran a voltage down the line. You could daisy chain as many as you wanted. On the digital belt packs, it doesn't work like that. You got 100 meter length, or else you got to put in a booster, and then you got this problem and that problem, and it only wants 110 ohm cable. And so yes, it's nice because that single cable now has 4 talk buttons on it that you can program, 4 listen buttons that you can program, but it's got so many other restrictions that they're very rarely used.
Yeah.
But then you get, now that you can run on video, you can run on Cat5.
Well, and obviously with fiber now in, I mean, you got your distribution boxes. So,
Yeah.
I mean, pulling into a stadium 10 years ago was a team of 12, 15 guys pulling cable for 8, 9, 10 hours.
Yes.
Yeah, now you get there, and if you get to FNB, for example, FNB's got pre-wired fiber everywhere.
Yes.
So you take the van, you take a loom out, you patch into the fiber points,
Yes.
and that includes your comms, your cameras,
Everything.
IFB stuff going out to commentary positions.
Well, our stage racks run on fiber.
Mm.
So you run your stage rack out, put it down, plug it into the wall box, plug the other side into the truck.
So instead of running cables into the stadium, you're carrying boxes, putting them down,
Yeah.
plugging them in. How do you solve that power problem? So have you got, because obviously they've given you fiber in a bunch of different positions.
For example, in the stadiums, Supersport and SABC said SABC said they would do some stadiums, and Supersport said they would do other stadiums.
Mm.
And then they've open to use either one. Obviously, the host broadcaster, if both companies are there, host gets preference over the fiber infrastructure.
Oh, okay.
But there's a power infrastructure that went with it. So we plug in power into the venues, and we've got breakout points. So everywhere a fiber box terminates,
you feed it, yeah.
you've got a power distribution that's run from our generators. So you don't have differential power and all that.
So it's not power from the stadium, it's your own.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I was always wondering about that. It's all good having your own fiber, but then you plug into the nearest power point and then you have power issues.
Often not, because now you optically linked, you're not electrically linked. So there's no way for the earth to transfer.
Yeah.
So fiber optic has got away from a lot of, has front of house and monitors and the OB all on the same power because we're picking up hums. That's gone.
That's gone because of the fiber.
Because of the fiber, because now you electrically isolated from each other.
Yeah. I mean, we tend to, now what we're doing with power is we tend to look at our syncing options because we want to clock to everybody.
Yes.
You don't always clock via the fibers, you clock via separate word clock or black and burst or anything like that. And you can actually start having issues if you've got sync issues on generators.
Yes.
So I tend to try and I'll always run a power into the venue for production because OBs don't operate 24/7 on rehearsals and all that kind of stuff. But then when OBs are there, I've normally got a 20 meter that I swap my power. My UPS lasts long enough for me to pull out, plug in the next one.
Yes.
So that I'm for the actual shows we're syncing onto your side.
You on
so our MADI is synced and all that kind of stuff. Yeah.
But you're also on full redundant.
Then I'm on full redundancy
power.
Yeah.
So, but then back on the comms thing, now you got IFBs, which is interrupted fallback, or earpieces,
which we call IEMs,
IEMs.
monitors, but it's interrupted fallback. In other words, interruption coming from director, from production.
Now you can have priorities on it. So the other guys, I will give, if they have an IFB key, they'll have a below normal priority. The incoming audio source is normal. The director is paging, so that's higher than normal. And then the sound guy is emergency. So if a mic,
check if it's working.
No, but if a mic breaks up, I don't care what the TD is saying to the. I need to tell that
switch
mics.
Yeah.
I need to cut the director out. I need to cut everybody out so I can speak with the talent.
Mm.
So it's all those little programming things that you need to take into account.
Yeah.
Then you have commentary. Commentary is another whole beast on its own because it's got microphones that are live on air. They push a button. It cuts their microphone off air silently.
So they can pre-listen.
And then they speak to the truck.
Yeah.
And on some of the boxes nowadays, you got up to 4 talkbacks. So they can talk to the commentator in the next booth if you program it correctly.
Oh, okay.
So that they can all talk on the same level
And about the same
and
stuff.
about the same stuff.
Yeah.
And the producer can speak to them and they can hit a button, take their mic
Because
off air.
sometimes you have one, like the English commentators will ask for a specific playback to be prepped,
Yes,
you know, on their silent button.
yes.
And then they can just tell the other guys, listen, this is going to come up if they didn't, so everybody knows and
What's
prepared
happening,
and ready
yes.
for going on. Yeah.
So there's a whole additional lot of comms rings that can happen. The producers can talk directly to the commentators.
So what happens when we hear the director on air?
Generally, it's
Who's made that mistake?
a brain dead commentator who's taken his headphones off,
And put them down
put them down
over his mic.
over his microphone, or
Someone's comm panel that screamed loud.
he has turned his headphones to the max, end stop,
Yeah.
and they're not sealing on his head.
Yeah. We have that with clicks on music side when a orally challenged
Yes,
individual turns a click up, and I'm sitting with overheads on the drum kits, for example,
yes.
and then you hear, and it's like, where's
Yeah.
the click open? Yeah.
Now that's where some of the designs in the trucks can be a problem.
Mm.
Because I'm listening to the director on my comms panel,
You're not listening to on air.
and you get a message from MCR, RCR, somebody,
We
we
can hear
can hear the director. So you kill the comms, which is
The no.
the no-no, and you can still hear the director. Then you start pre-fading everything to
try and
find
find who's
where
doing
it's
it.
coming from.
No, because if you've got 12 commentator mics, vernac, because also when you say we're hearing the director, are they hearing them on the English, on the Afrikaans, on the vernac, on the also where they're
Yeah.
hearing
I mean,
on air?
so if you look at some of
Because
the...
you send out what you call dirty and clean mixes,
Yes,
and then effects mixes.
yes,
So because you're not doing an English full mix, you're doing a ambient mix, like a effects mix, and then you add the English to that.
Yeah,
And
it's
that
correct.
same one you add the Afrikaans to
Yes.
it, and the same one you add the vernac to it.
yes,
So if you've got a problem on your effects, it's everywhere.
yes.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, like a kid grabbing a mic. Hello, mom, can you hear me?
yes. So, that's where it can get challenging. Then we do...
See, this is analog comms.
This
When
is
you have-
analog
when you
comms.
have production coming to stare in the door.
I don't know why the director's away from his station. That also never happens. So, yeah, we do... You have to look at all of those. Then you have... There's a whole bunch...
There's a question regarding your mic level.
What's wrong with my mic? Stop running about my mic. It's cool looking. It's all that matters.
So then you'll end up with your comms with RCR, MCR, whatever you're going to call it. And it all depends where you are and what your feed is. So internationally, so you're doing like Rugby World Cup, Soccer World Cup, you don't have comms coming into you as the technical director. Your mic or the DA's mic, the director's assistant, PA production assistant, whatever they called, is live. And you working off of a script that says, at this time you're going to show a wide shot, you're going to show this, you're going to do that, and they stick to it. And they will count that through. They don't care if you've got a problem, if you missed something. That's your problem. You heard it, the rest of the world's not complaining.
Yeah.
So that goes out on one of your channels on your actual transmission.
Yeah. It's too late then.
Yeah. But then you land up with the guys like in South Africa, or if you're doing a local broadcast for a specific broadcaster, they want to be able to talk back to you and say, coordinate ad breaks and all that. So that can happen via telephone, old-fashioned telephone with a hybrid.
Mm.
that interfaces via one of the ports on the comms panel,
Comes up on a button.
comes up on a button, they can talk, we're happy. You can do it ISDN. ISDN much better sounding.
Yeah, it's wider bandwidth.
Yeah. You can also get your mix -1 coming from your studio down one line. So you're not limited to one thing happening on the line. So now you can have 2 4 wires essentially
Coming in.
coming in on one ISDN line.
Okay.
And now we're moving to
But
VoIP.
it's not just one ISDN line. It's generally a couple, like 3 or 4 of them.
Yeah, you normally have a main and a backup.
Yeah.
So then now we move into VoIP.
Yeah.
And so you got a VoIP card that does 8 channels. You establish.
So, but okay, when you move to VoIP, how do you connect your internet? Where do you get your connectivity? Do you have like a ISP supply in the van? Or
we need internet.
yeah, someone needs to give, but it needs
Yeah.
to be obviously needs to be like at least a 10 meg.
Well, on the VoIP cards, because it's comms and you're not that critical, you can come down to 2 megs.
Okay.
Then you start questioning.
So
okay, we're not going 8, we're only going 4
a SIM card
channels.
is okay.
Yeah, SIM card's fine.
Yeah, little, because I'm
Yeah.
sure there's little boxes made. Just stick in a SIM
Yep.
card, off you go.
And then on the SIM card note, you have GSM unit, which is basically a rack-mounted cell phone.
Yeah.
Plugs in to the hybrid.
So you can have any, and that becomes your hybrid. So you can have multiple
Yeah.
back
So-
and forth.
So the studio will phone that cell phone number, you latch it, hello, except you push a button, then you speak to them on the comms panel.
Yeah, and that's how you would do your ICR, your control
Yes.
guys, all that.
So it all depends where you are, what infrastructure is available to you, how you're going to interact with the studios, or where your feeds are going, how that interaction happens. Now, on your World Cups or your big world feeds, you can have stand-up unilateral positions
Yeah.
that have a IFB, but nobody actually speaks on that. We test it beforehand. Only time we will TD or a venue tech manager will come on there and speak is if there's major chaos, because you book a window,
Mm.
so that position has a number attached to it, and 5 minutes before your session starts, the presenter goes and stands there with a board with a telephone number on it, and his TV station better phone that number or else he's not getting comms. If that, and it's on an auto answer,
Yeah.
so as soon as it rings, it latches, chink,
And
straight to his ear,
And then you can.
and he must talk to them.
Mm.
We've
You're not
tested
responsible
it.
for that.
We know it's working. We can monitor it,
Just imagine that.
and cue. He will get his cue from
From them.
them, and
Yeah, and they can do that. They
do
can
their
do
own
that-
thing?
Own thing, yeah.
and but that's where your venue technical managers can be difficult. But you have to maintain strict control,
Mm.
because your booking is from this time to that time. You halfway through your sentence, back to beauty, and it takes beauty sound. It cuts the microphone.
That's everything.
That's it. Sorry, your
Yeah.
segment's up.
Look, I mean, when it comes to live TV, there's a lot of stuff that happen. I mean, sometimes you watch something on air and you think, oh, that's cool, but the chaos that's happening behind the scenes.
Well, that's what I always.
You know, something simple like I've watched we do some of these award shows, and you've got guest hosts that come up and they read an auto cue. Auto
Yes.
cue is basically a thing over the lens in front of you, so you can see your script,
Yes.
your name, and say this, and then there's someone else's name, your partner, and
Yeah.
say this, and then people will forget, and you have like the one prompting the other one, and then they read the other person's, and then everybody gets and then their confusion just causes chaos
Yes.
because
Eventually, it's like, sorry boys, all mics are open
yeah, it's
because
just
we
like
don't
you
know
who's doing what.
Yeah. So it's
Yeah.
But
I mean, I've done shows with segments where two presenters come out and they've got equal parts.
yes,
And one of them doesn't say a thing for the whole segment.
yes,
Because he's either camera shy or something's happened, and
yeah,
and then envelope and the winner is.
Yeah.
That's it.
but
And he's missed like his entire line.
but that
And he's being spoken to in his comms. He's being told speak.
now,
And
it's a simple thing, but when you know it, I'm going to give away a secret. If you ever see a presenter on air and you can't see their earpiece,
mm,
and you suddenly see their eyes drift to one side,
that's where the mic is. Oh, that's where
that's where
earpiece-
the earpiece is, and somebody's just spoken to them, and your natural instinct
Is
is look to where the sound is coming from. So you suddenly see this person face camera.
Yeah, because they're like trying to concentrate on what they're being told.
Yes.
Yeah.
So it's those sort of things that you look out for, you got to
Yeah.
be aware of. And then comms etiquette.
Mm.
I cannot stress comms etiquette enough.
I mean, you got a team of 50, 60, 70 people on a production, sometimes even more. Everybody with the potential of pressing a button to speak.
Yes. But now, this is where sometimes the thicker skin comes in. Because if I'm in the middle of a show and I've got a problem with, say, a crowd mic that's making a noise, I'm going to climb on the comms to the audio guys. I'll use an example. Latabo. He's one of my audio assists. LT, crowd 4, crackling. End
you
of
go.
conversation.
Yeah. He doesn't have to say, okay, I'm going.
Or
It's just-
I need a response from him. So, copy.
yeah, but that's it.
End of story. There's no or you'll get Paul coming for LT. So now he's drawn your attention to the comms.
And then he waits.
Yes. I've got a problem. Cable's damaged. Mute. Mute the microphone because he's going to unplug it. Clear. And you'll watch a meter as he pulls it. And he'll run another cable in. And you'll get a Paul LT. Yes, LT. Check. Now you know what problem he was working on. He doesn't have to tell you check crowd 4.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah, it becomes a bit of a shorthand, but
becomes
both sides need an understanding of what the other side is physically doing
yeah.
for a timeline, so that the context makes sense of that shorthand.
Okay,
Yeah.
now the shorthand, I've been called out on it once or twice, but I'll say to the guys, when you got a chance, check that for me.
Mm.
So that's not important. Just get to it, make sure. Could be that's something that's going to happen in 3 segments time, but I just want to make sure that it's still
Someone's
there,
checking.
still plugged in. Or, guys, I got this issue now. Now, I know it's a family show, but it's fucked. Comes over your comm system.
Right.
You just see sound assistants running like they've been set on fire because they know I need it now.
Because it's in the segment that's either currently busy or about to go live
Yes.
or something like
So-
that.
And that's where it comes in that it's not directed at you.
Yeah, it's context.
It's context. But the guys that know me,
Mm.
no, I'm not going to let drip with.
Well, I've had this conversation with the guys and young guys coming up doing monitors on a stage, for example. When you get a band that comes on stage and there's an issue and they look at you because you're the point of reference and
Yeah.
you're the monitor guy, it is your job to fix it. And they get a bit aggressive or they use language or whatever, and then guys take it personally. Why they're attacking me? I'm just doing my... Don't take it it's context. Fix
Yeah.
the problem. Afterwards, they wouldn't even remember it.
Yeah.
If you pull an attitude back,
Yeah.
and have something to say about it, then the whole thing just falls apart.
But also, coming back to comms and problems and things like that, you've got a MC. You've got two MCs on a stage. They doing an award show. And MC1's mic breaks up for whatever reason. Interference, whatever it is. First thing you do is I set up my comms panel that I can hit 3 or 4 buttons at a time, and I group them together so I could speak to the TD, the PA, and the presenter at the same time. So I'll say, presenter 1, your mic's got a problem, share with presenter 2. Now presenter 2's heard that as well, so then they just do a TikTok.
Yeah.
Okay. In that same time, one of the other buttons that I've pressed is the audio assistant.
So he hears what you're telling them.
He hears what I've told him. And I'll say, stand by. Then I'll speak to the TD. Say, is it possible for you to create a visual hole for me?
Yeah.
And now, all of this has happened behind the scenes. The viewers see something's gone wrong, but they can still hear the person, so they're not too phased. Then the TD will say, right, come in from the left.
You got 10 seconds.
You got 10 seconds. Because they've cut to a crowd shot or they've gone a single, whatever it is. And the audio assist is standing by with a spare microphone, runs on, swaps it out,
Gets off.
fade up, go.
Camera comes back.
Camera
everything's
comes back,
normal.
guy standing there.
Yeah, so audience there,
they see it.
but it's it's not as distracting as what it is on camera.
Yeah,
But it wasn't on camera.
yeah,
Camera just goes away, comes back. Like we've had with guys with headsets and the mic's moved or whatever.
yes,
You go to come back and the mic's perfect.
yes.
He didn't grab it. The audio tech came in from the side, fixed it, ran off.
But it's all keeping the comms short and sweet, making sure that it's clear.
No, because the whole thing is, you're talking about one element now within a production, which is the audio side and what we're dealing with. But
Yes.
this is happening simultaneously with EVS, with live content, with presenters, with talent, with director, with stage crew. So that's what I was saying. There's 70, 80, 90 people all dealing with their own little bits and pieces, but all on the same picture.
Yes,
And you need to be listening and being aware of what they're doing as well. So the more complex and more messed up your side gets, the more the whole production's going to start, oh goodness, we've got a sound problem.
yes,
And the same thing with sets, and the same thing with cameras, and the same thing with whatever.
and that's also where I push it in South Africa that we try and get a guarantee engineer that's not the mixer.
That can oversee.
That can deal. The bigger the shows get, you need that.
Yeah. It's like smaller shows. You can have a guy directing and vision mixing.
Yes,
It's 3-4 cameras. He knows what he's doing. It's fine. But the minute you get to a 12 camera show, he's got to start focusing on other stuff and communicate with other people. So the vision mixing becomes.
and they're doing squeeze backs and
bunch
split
of stuff,
screens,
yeah.
and it's mission impossible for one man to handle.
Exactly. That's when your assistant director comes in, or productions director, because someone's got to queue your EVS guys. They've got to scroll stuff and check it and prep this and prep that.
Yes.
And, if you've ever been inside an Obi van, there's a lot going on. We've got, while this is all happening, your EVS guy is talking to you, asking you to check audio on something he's just received.
Yeah, it's a
and
last
bumped
minute
in,
edit.
And a last minute edit, is it okay? Pay it in, and then the levels. He does that because he's going to be low or high or fine.
Yes.
But you know what's happening then, or he's playing it off a different machine that you haven't had patched for audio because they've just brought in. He
Yes.
has blue and red ready. They brought him another thing. He's prepped it on purple because these machines are going, and now you got to know that something's going to come on purple, and you got to purple's not on the
I
desk.
don't have purple on this. Find a way to get purple on the
Get
desk.
purple on desk.
Well, the last Summit 25, we had an issue that, for some or other unknown reason, they shot a interview backstage, and the mic that they used was dead. So we only had the top camera mic.
Ah,
So
I remember that.
I now called the TD, and the TD said to the producer, get into audio and go hear what Paul's talking about.
Mm.
Because we can't do this on comms. Is she came into audio, had a listen, so well, we have to have it. We're going to roll with it.
But it's her call.
It's her call, and we still had a little way to go. And Eugene was directing her, and hang on, we were, one of our sponsors was Vodacom,
Mm.
and we had this phone thing. They cropped it back, made it look like it was shot on a cell phone.
And then the audio squeaky.
The squeaky was already squeaky. I didn't have to do the effect, so off it went. But it's all this happening simultaneously,
Yeah.
and the comms gets
And still following script and still staying on the timeline and all that.
And then you get other programs that you actually split your production facility. So now you're running a red carpet area,
Yeah.
plus you're running a main show,
And the backstage.
plus a
The
backstage.
behind the scenes stuff, yeah.
Yeah, and there's 3 different TDs,
One for each.
one for each, but it's all coming out of one truck.
Yeah.
So now the guy sitting programming that comm system's got to pay attention. Those ports are working with that area.
Those party lines and everything, yeah.
So that the main TD doesn't end up speaking to red carpet,
Mm.
because red carpet doesn't want to hear the guy calling Q Act 1.
Yeah.
He wants to hear Fonzo Mizi walking down the
Yeah.
red carpet in his dress.
Look, there's always this. I think people that don't work in it. I mean, it's the same way. If I look at an auditor in his element, I have no clue what he's doing. He's getting excited about white paper and numbers.
Yeah.
It's like, huh? Ours is just a different line of field, and it just shows you that you can be very active in the entertainment / production industry, but still in your bubble.
Yes.
You don't know what other guys are doing. Because, I mean, as much as you're hectically involved in the broadcast side, and you have an idea what front of house does and monitors does and all that technically,
Yes.
same way I have an idea of what all your technicals, but the workflows on how to get that running smooth, how to communicate that, what to prioritize, how to build those structures. That's where the experience and the timeline and everything comes in. You know?
This comes back to a thing we did Africa Day a couple of years ago. We had a D-cam, so it's a radio camera,
Mm.
and they plugged the mic into the back of it, and the gain structures on the camera were horrendous. We couldn't use the mic. It was audio-free distortion. And when it was checked, it was working. But now they've been running around. There was a problem with the camera.
Yeah,
they've made changes.
Yeah.
But now, I've just got a 30-second count to a live crossing from the audience with 2 presenters crossing live to SABC
On that camera.
on that camera. First question, TD, can you do it with another camera? No. Right, guys, grab any microphone that's wireless,
Get it to them.
get it to them, and tell me the number while you're running.
Yeah.
And I get a RX8. So Evert was mixing the music in the truck. And
So he had RX8 in his...
RX8 was there in his little music mix world.
Yeah.
I had my TV show world, which was RX 15, 16, 17, and 18. Now I need RX8. Evert, move. And I grab his RX8 and I completely destroy what he's done.
Because you got to... I mean, talking and singing, 2 different ball games.
Yeah. So I do everything. Now it's on a D-cam. So I've got lip sync issues.
Yes.
And I'm dialing
You
delay.
watch you dialing the gain in while he's going.
And 3, 2, 1, and we cross. And I was still pulling in the last few milliseconds when we cross. I can't do it while we're on air because then they start to stutter.
Yeah.
But it's not that noticeable. It was about quarter frame out. So we went. And we finished. I said to Evert, right, you can have it back. I'll throw it back to his side of the desk. And put all his settings back. Because we hadn't made a snapshot yet. We were in the middle of a band rehearsal.
Yeah.
Put all his settings back. delete the delay from it. And his words to me was, "This is why I do not do live TV." Because I would rather, I know where my band is, I can see the guys.
Yeah.
So
It's a different ball game, and I think people get different rushes out of things. You know, some guys, whatever tickles your fancy is what's going to tickle your fan, and some guys need that rush of, I don't know what's coming next, but I'm ready for it. Other guys, you know, if it gets too easy, they get bored. Some guys really like it when it's completely predictable. You know, I don't like that. It gets very boring.
yeah,
You know, so it's each to his own. But at the end of the day, it just opens up. You know, I find it interesting talking to different guys in different fields and hearing their perspective, because that's what makes it.
yeah,
You know, your perspective on OBs. You know, the last thing that you speak about, and I'm talking about you now, is what the mix sounds like and loudness. Because that's a given. You got to get your loudness right. You got to get a good balance going.
Yeah.
But it's everything else: the comms, the infrastructure, the getting the networking, the matrixing, and all that
but
kind of stuff.
all that being said, when we walk out, we've done it a few times. We walk
Yeah.
out at the end of the Psalmers, neg 23 on the nose.
Exactly.
But
I mean,
all
I
this
remember
other
the first time.
chaos has
I'm
been
going
happening.
back now to, I can't remember when. 2011, 2012. We were sitting in OB3, I think it was. And I was still getting my head around the Lau. It was like, I think we had a dead bank. Remember that still? Back in the day, there was the last bank of the console.
Yeah, there was
dead.
Obi-Wan.
Obi-Wan was dead. So I'm working, so I'm compromised. I'm going to multiple layers, you on that side. And I'm doing my sound checks and I'm doing my band stuff and all eventually. And eventually you leaned over to me and says, "Are you mixing to loudness?" I'm like, eventually, yeah. But I didn't know where the loudness meters on the desk was.
Yeah,
And you switched it on, and after we were sitting there for like 4 hours,
yeah,
neg 23.
yeah.
But this was in amongst me arguing about the listening level. You know, because I keep turning it up, you pressing the dim button, I keep turning it up. Because I know for myself, if I get my listening level right, and then I do my setup, I'm going to hit my neg 23 without having to look at meters, because my head's in the right space.
But you had this discussion right in season 1.
Listening level.
But know your music.
Yeah.
So I have tracks on my phone, on my laptop, whatever. And if I'm mixing a show in an environment that I'm not used to, while everybody is doing their tech check and the comms are going crazy and everything, I'm listening to music.
Just
And balancing my comm system out.
moment.
Yeah. Balancing my comm system out. Okay, I can hear the director, I can hear my music. Get a feel for the environment that I'm in. Hang on, this system is very bass heavy, so don't fight it.
Yeah.
Because that's
don't
what it
cut it.
sounds like.
But
Yeah.
in OB1 and 3, push your chair back a meter
Yes.
before you do anything. If you think like, wait, hang on, push chair back. Was
Yeah.
it because the way the monitorings are situated and
Yes.
all that?
But it's all those little things. Now, it sounds strange, but one of the things that I do when I guarantee on these shows, especially if I'm doing comms and audio, if I'm doing one or the other, I can relax a little bit more. But Japan, Japan, China last year did the FIBA Basketball World Cup. I sat on a flight case for 3 weeks because one of the things, if you're cold and uncomfortable, you're not going to nod off if things get boring.
Yeah.
So I sat on a flight case,
Which is extremely uncomfortable
which is extremely uncomfortable.
after about 5 minutes.
So you sit on a flight case. I've got an audio comms guarantee engineer. They don't have a 28-button comms panel. They've got close to a 56-button comms panel because you put all the expansion frames on so you can listen to each port individually. But I was comms and audio guarantee, but I was audio guarantee for 2 productions. World feed plus the super feed.
Okay.
So I had 2 mixers that I was looking after.
2 comm systems.
1 comm system split between the 2. Plus all my outgoing feeds with the unilateral book positions and all that. Make sure that unilateral 1, position 1 is routed out of that line correctly. All that's happening all the time. They just walk in and drop a booking sheet in front of you. My production teams, one was French and the other one was Israeli. So you're not hearing English on the comms. The only time you hear English on the comms is if they want you.
Yeah, when they speak to you.
When they speak to you. And then so you on your toes the whole time. You can't afford to let your guard down.
Yeah.
So in that aspect, like you say, some people live for the rush. From the time we do lineups till the time we clear, with doing all our post-match feeds, because the EVS could have an issue with the audio unit, and instead of just feeding it directly, you got to do a level correction somewhere.
Yeah.
So you on your toes until you get on the bus to go back to the hotel. So
and then you don't go party, you just go.
Yeah.
You just fall over.
So
it's extremely tiring. You take a physical strain when you focus for that long. You get physically tired, but you're doing nothing physical.
Yes.
From that perspective, your senses are working hectically.
Well, one of the longest ones, or there's two, that are a brutal assault on the body and the mind, is cricket, test cricket.
Yeah.
So you got 5 days and 100 overs a day, or 90 overs a day. And the other one is politics, where you
it gets monotonous and
you're sitting with panel discussions, 6-7 interpreters. They're talking about things you know nothing about. There's nothing interesting to listen to, and all you've got to do is you've got to keep those levels right. And they do this for 12 hours a day.
And you've also got your whole team and your techs also standing by, all listening, because at any moment a mic can go at the most boring time, and you got to be ready to go. It's not like, oh, hang on, let me find this guy to go fetch the mic. Your structure of your team stays the same.
Yeah, that brings me back to one day we were doing cricket in PE, and the presenter moved a chair over the lapel cable. This is lunchtime show.
Yeah.
Main presenter, not guest.
And he's got to talk all the time.
And they got to talk all the time. So I get called, Paul, get the spare in there. Now we were limited on resources because it was big. So we had 150 meter cable at camera 6, which is a field camera. So it could cover the pitch and it could come into the studio.
Okay.
Through the back door. So I didn't know the directors then. I was still very new in the industry, and got this in my ear: get me a mic, get me a mic, get me a mic. So I call camera 6 RE50. Stand by. I leopard crawl across the studio floor because now all the cameramen are on a MCU, so they don't see legs. I tap the presenter on the leg with a microphone.
Here's your mic.
Looks down, microphone, picked it up, started talking. Right, I've spent the rest of that show lying on the studio floor. I just lay there.
Looking at it.
Right, tea time's over. Stand up, take their mics off.
Yeah.
Thank you.
That was brilliant.
So it's things that you need to do.
But it all adds the fun as well,
Yeah.
There's so many stories we can take away from these productions. That's all cool.
But it all comes down to comms.
Yeah.
At the end of the day.
Communications.
Yeah.
If you call. I mean, we did a communications. As a subject goes far and wide. Me and Adrian did that talk on communications, just between protocols.
Yes.
So it's just another element that keeps crawling in. Excuse the pun.
Yeah. But the other thing that...
Time. Yo, okay.
Yeah.
Our 27 minutes are up.
Okay. Quick one. If you think you asked the difference between 10 years ago and now.
Yeah.
You had maybe 12 external ways, 4-wire ports on a comms panel to connect to.
Yeah.
Now, MADI port, 64 channels, let's go.
Yeah.
And you fill
you
in
got
them
multiple of them, yeah.
So Yes, these things have changed a hell of a lot.
A lot. I mean, on our side as well, it's just ridiculous. I mean, if I think about productions I did 10 years ago and what we did and doing the same thing today, the infrastructure that goes in, we've complicated it more tech-wise. We're delivering the same result, but we've got so many more toys and so many more options. So it's a lot of fun. I mean, the growth is exciting. I just hope we get to do it soon.
Yeah, what are we now, 6 months?
Yeah, 6 months. Anyway, there's announcements tonight apparently. I think so.
Yeah. So
Anyway, I'm going to cut it short there. We said we were only going to do like 27 minutes. I don't know.
Sorry,
I think
guys.
That was about 28 minutes ago. But thanks for watching. As we say, we're sitting here in the nice new layout in my studio. So I'm going to switch over and then we're going to see you guys next week. Oh, not that.